Yesterday, we talked about the life force being our ability to move and shake our reality. We also talked about moving and shaking is the gift of being a composer of your destiny. Now, what is a composer? A composer is very skillful, is very resourceful, is very knowledgeable about all of the instruments that come together to create a synergy. Okay? A synergy. Now, when we look at the instruments of our lives, we view them as depth, we view them as height, we view them as volume, as range, overall composition. So we learned that we have these vibrations within us that can be tuned to very arrhythmic, okay, frequencies that can be our neuroses, neurotic behavior, our complaining, all of those basement issues that we have, but we also have vibrations we can attune ourselves into that are very rhythmic, that are very fine-tuned. We could say vibrations of prosperity, of abundance, just like when we are listening to different chords on an instrument. Some chords, even on, we say, looking at the piano, some lower notes give us this melancholy, nostalgic, reflective, almost dark, like in a dark forest with the moonlight, very haunting. And the upper notes, we could say, give us this feeling of lightness, of enthusiasm, as of joy, and the sunny day. So we all carry that within us. It's just we get very much set in these vibrations, and we're never meant to be set in vibrations, okay? Because a composer is composing. When we think of composing our reality, is the openness, is the skillfulness, the resourcefulness, and the knowledge to be able to move and shake ourselves to create a better, more depth, more height, more range, more dynamic volume. We could say overall composition, okay, that is reflecting our evolution or our changeability. That's life force. And life force is our good health. It's our true nature. To be changeable, to be moldable, to be moved and shaked in a way that gives us more expansion of what it means to be a creative composer. Okay? A creative composer is very prolific. And that's how we are. There are so many expressions that want to come through us, but we get so fixed in tight in this one expression of ourselves that we never truly get to experience how outstanding and majestic our ever-changing expression is. So we learned about that yesterday. Now I would like to talk about, what do we want to move and shake? Why do we need life force to move and shake ourselves? Why do we need to move and shake our reality? Basically, a lot of it, we talk about suffering. So that's why we want that life force to move and shake us. So suffering, I see it as there's a habit, there's a pattern, could be a tendency, could be a lifestyle, could be an expression that we are fixed in. It could be so many things. And they are trying to dull itself out of the, you could say, out of the embodiment. So when we think of dulling, we think of something as getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until it's not there. Okay? So a lot of times the suffering we experience when we are, for example, suffering. We are carrying our mother's we're carrying our mother's depression. So our mother has manners and has methods and has motives that say are cheap. And we're carrying that. And we're suffering because we're like, this isn't really working, this isn't really working, this isn't really working, and that's the suffering. The suffering is, this isn't working, this isn't working. Creates a tension. It's a tension, and the life force is able to look at that. Okay, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Life force, pattern, here you go, it's inside. This is going to redirect you. But a lot of us, we don't have that. So when we talk about on this planet, this deep, deep suffering could be, we have suffering in our perspective we have. Either about self, about humanity, about the past, about the future. We could be suffering in, we're carrying our dad's insecurity. And we're like, this isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working. And what happens? Our face, if you constantly are in that relay with yourself and with that pattern of this isn't working, literally you can see tension building either in your body, a lot of people in their face. So a lot of times when we see this tension right here, a lot of times that has to do with a pattern related to the father. This isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Okay, so the looseness that we experience, where we're loose, where we're very free, okay, we're free to evolve, we're free to change, we're free to empower ourselves, we're free to reach that next level. That comes from our ability to recognize the suffering and recognize the redirection that we need to set ourselves into. So we all have patterns, and a lot of these patterns have been given to us from past lives. And these patterns, when it comes to our mother, and we have a lot of women, even collectively, that have very cheap manners, have very cheap methods, have very cheap motives, meaning cheap as in, a lot of women don't feel they have the ability to make life happen for them, so they cheap as in you lower your self-worth, you lower your dignity, your integrity, and kind of create these situations either in the household, either in the workforce, that are very much reflecting that we don't really feel beautiful, we don't really feel graceful, we don't really feel like we're creative, or we don't really feel like that what we have is good enough. Okay, so that creates this like huge depression within us, because when we don't feel like our presence is good enough, well, what do we have? We have nothing. No skill, no resource, no knowledge. Because to feel good enough is the foundation in which we can actually use a life force to evolve, into move and shake our destiny into what it is that our heart is calling for in this life. So when we have this suffering, it is a pattern that's dulling out. So for example, it could be we're suffering in these sort of relationships, and the pattern keeps showing up again and again. Let's say at the end of the relationship, we detach, we turn really cold, and then we're like, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. But we just don't know how to repattern ourselves, to redirect ourselves. So that's when it comes to the life force energy. The life force energy gives us a recognition. So we're recognizing this isn't working instead of just holding it and just keep it going. Okay, we're recognizing that, okay, this expression is no longer working for me. I need to invite new expressions into my life so that I can keep the continuity of my light very prolific. Okay, so when you feel like your light is dimming, or when you feel like there's something dull about you, or you're dulling, it just means that there's something going on inside of you, a pattern, a habit, a tendency, a lifestyle that's just not working for you. And you're holding on to it because you don't feel comfortable with your evolution. You don't feel comfortable with probably letting go of a pattern that's been with you for many, many lifetimes, because it's like in the suffering of this isn't working, I feel so dull, my life is dull, my mind is dull, my heart chakra is dull. But to actually break through that, it requires an even more, it's like an even deeper experience of what we call that suffering, or that challenge, or that obstacle. Because whenever something is being dulled out of the system, a pattern, and whenever we're being called to integrate a new pattern that is more of yes, more of joy, more of light, expanding rather than dimming and dulling out, yes. Okay? It's like you are creating that bridge. And a lot of times that bridge, it's a practice, it's a ritual, just like creating any bridge. It feels a little dangerous. It feels a little scary, because you're like, oh, this is, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, where I'm going. All I know is that this isn't working. I need to create a practice or ritual that's going to help me extend myself into a pattern that's actually going to revolutionize myself. So when we think of revolutionize yourself, it's thinking energizing yourself. We think of inspiring yourself, elevating yourself. When we think of a true composition, either you could say a symphony, an orchestra, and we go into that amphitheater and we are just elevated. Regardless if it's a haunting music that's very dark and mysterious, or if it's a very cheerful and very joyful song, we get that resonance of that orchestra, that symphony, basically going through the many changes, the many patterns that is evolution, and we're very captivated. It's exuberant. It's exuberant in the very most incredible way. And that's why we sit there and we're just in awe, because we know that is our true nature. Our true nature isn't just to be, I'm this expression. I'm just this person that, has this kind of repeat with myself, and it's not really working. This is my repeat, but it's not really working. Oh, I'm 80. Oh, I'm dead. It's like, no, that's not okay. And then you just kind of cycle back and say, oh, let's try it again. Let's see if this time we can actually get into that pattern we need to be in, so that we can actually get to the evolution and get some new expressions going on that makes us more dynamic and more changeable and more prolific. Okay, creative. So whenever just like we're not creative, we talk about this lackluster, is you literally are doing something, a pattern. A lot of times we have no idea, because we're so used to, particularly in this American culture, just keep pushing. But a lot of times we're pushing in a pattern that's gonna get us nowhere. It's like we're pushing and we have this pattern, our mother's depression or a daddy's insecurity, and we say, well, if we just keep pushing, then eventually we will have pushed beyond it. But it's not about pushing, it's about recognizing the pattern, using your life force to redirect the pattern, get into your embodiment, a pattern that actually gives you the feeling of, this is working, woo, expansion, woo, openness, woo, I feel alive. And then move forward with that. But a lot of us, we just, push and push and push, and eventually, But life like that, we talk about being that composer. It's about learning your craft, okay? Learning your craft and learning how to eliminate what is just, like a composer can easily eliminate, let's say, an instrument, or let's say there's something that doesn't sound right to the overall resonance. A composer has no problem eliminating that instrument out of the whole orchestra. We don't need that. It's creating this kind of, it's off. But us, when we talk about eliminating, like, carrying our mother's depression or our daddy's insecurity, we're just like, we're just like, oh, okay, just this, no. But a part of our incarnations, and we have these sanskaras that are basically our karmas. We all kinds of karmas that we pick up that we don't fully resolve and that we don't fully rinse ourselves of. We need to. And that's what the life force is always there for us. Okay? So why are we wanting to learn we could say, the art of recognizing suffering, revolutionizing suffering, and the realization of suffering? Because all of us on this planet, we want to get to a dharma, okay, a dharma. So what is a dharma? A dharma is when we could say we use our great instrument, or we could see our instruments of the depth, the height, the range, the volume, the octaves, everything that we are in this single embodiment, to bring humanity into its recognition, revolution, realization. And that's what we all are. Our heart, that's our heart. Our heart is being called to this. But it's just a matter of fact of letting all of these patterns dull out of the system. So when we think of the heart, we think of fearless. When we think of dharma, we think of fearless. But the only way we can get fearless is a lot of times we have to go through much suffering. Okay, either it's, the mother's depression, low self-worth that, creates all of these these cheap escapes and things of that nature. Could be daddy's insecurity that's very neurotic, that's just kind of gross and disgusting. You know what I'm saying? It's like dirty, okay, the garbage of that. And that creates suffering within us because we don't feel free in a tension that is, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel right. Oh, I'm kind of set in it. I'm stagnant in it. I won't allow myself to move and shake. I won't allow myself to express new things. I won't allow myself to actually look at the thing. What happens is that creates this, what we call, it could be a lifetime, it could be decades, where we're just literally just rotating through that same thing again and again and again. Okay, and that's what we talk about really is karmas. You're just rotating through the same thing every time you get to that period, or we could say that part, that cycle where you want to break through, where you want to actually grow and mature beyond that, to reinvent your expression, your relay with that pattern, whatever it may be. But what happens is if you don't have enough life force, you're just pulled right back into it. It's like, here you go, here's an opportunity, break free. Oh, I got sucked right back into that pattern, right back into that rotation. Okay? But when we think of like an incarnation in expressing the fullness of it, which is joy, to express the fullness of your being, from the depth to the height to the range to the volume, the dynamics, all of that, is to, you're in a rotation, you have this pattern, you change. It's like you go over here, you change to go over here. Because life itself is there's so much to be learned. There's so much to be integrated and to embody and to express that we should never consider ourselves set, fixed. We should always be considering ourselves reinventing, because that creates an ingenuity, and that is like more connected to the heart chakra. It's more connected to like a soul self. It's that ingenuity, because that ingenuity we all possess within our heart, which is our dharma, is able to move and shake realities within ourselves in such a way that we experience these great joys in our life. And isn't that kind of what we want, these great joys? So when we say this isn't working, oh my gosh, I'm at a party, I don't like it. Oh wait, I'm at another party, I don't like it. I'm at another party, I'm at a party, I don't like it. Oh, I'm just gonna pretend. Or, I'm with my friends, this is so unproductive. This is so unproductive. This isn't working, I'm gonna complain. Oh, I'm just gonna fake it. That's suffering. It's just suffering is we just deny and avoid. But that real suffering that we don't want to look at is actually creating that bridge to a new pattern that we must, either now or decades or maybe next life, that we must invite into ourselves, because it is what's going to improve our incarnation. It's like we must, but we're like, it's really painful and it's really challenging. But a lot of times we have so many incarnations of just being in that same tension. And then when we're presented, we could say, this pattern, okay, this pattern that it wants to come into our embodiment. It wants to redirect us into an improvement of our incarnation. But when we come to it, we get scared. And right when we, start to finish that bridge into it and to cross it, we stop. We sabotage. We say, this ain't for me. And we just go back across the bridge to what is there. So, in our life, we're meant to cross so many bridges. Because think of it like the planet. We had to cross so many rivers and so many oceans and so much land, territory, to find our way. And that's that ingenuity within us. That's the calling of our heart. The calling of our heart to look at our creativity, look at our intelligence, and see how can we improve it. How can we invite joy that comes from the lightness of being reinvented, of fresh, of potential. But we get so, in our past lives, we get so interlocked with this heavy thing that we do, and it wants to dull out, and it's trying to dull out, but the tension from it dulling out, we don't allow ourselves to recognize that suffering is simply your embodiment telling you it's time. It's time for you. Either it could be a relationship pattern, it could be whatever, your career, could be just your friends, it could be your lifestyle, anything. It's your evolution calling to you, calling for you to enrich your life. So richness is joy. And richness, when we even look at it culturally, all around this planet, there is this cultural depiction of what it means to rise into your divinity, to rise into your most rich self. And you have to go through all of these, we could say, all of these versions of self. And you have to recognize that version of self. You have to revolutionize that version of self. You reach a realization, which is like that aha moment, which is like crossing that bridge, realization. There is a new potential now available, now integrated, and now expressed in me. That's the realization. And that's what leads us, we could say, into these other versions of self. And as we get more comfortable with refining, recognizing, revolutionizing, realizing ourselves, the more we get these joys, these joys that come from the authenticity of our nature, which is not tension, which is not, just this isn't working, this isn't, and complaining and being ruled by your moods and the garbage. The authenticity is you allowing yourself to be a composer. And it's like that self-responsibility, it's like that sovereignty. But we can't actually, we say, obtain that or feel that when we don't have skills, we don't have resources, we don't have knowledge. Skills, it's like the manners, the methods, and the motives you have. Are they pure? Are they clean? Or are they cheap? Okay, they're cheap. Or your methods. It's like your talents and your gifts. How devoted are you to them? How committed are you to them? Okay? And we could say our motives. If we have wanky motives, we have cheap motives for ourselves, desperate, all of the, stuff, then our overall skillfulness is just not going to be up to put. Okay? And that's the thing with our, when we really look at our authenticity, which is really deep inside of ourselves, there's no lying to yourself. Okay? And you can lie all you want and even lie to people, but eventually, there comes a time when all of that is not working, that you hold on to attention. It dulls out so much where it's become so unbearable. Where literally a lot of people become so unbearable, it becomes so tense and so tight that they have to. Okay? And that's kind of what we don't want to get to, where it's like so tense, so tight, where you have to. And it's simply the remedy to all of that. I'm just going to stay this way, it's not really working, and kind of, is embracing, accepting, and nourishing our changeability, nourishing our evolution, nourishing our authenticity. And that nourishment is what we call being a warrior to your life. Being a stronghold to your life. And that's a mover and shaker. So we never see mover and shakers as this fairy kingdom. No, movers and shakers are the ones that actually keep the fairy kingdom, we could say, intact. If we didn't have that movers and shaker, that warrior about us, then, the cheap people would just go run through the fairy kingdom and just, let's just go pluck all of the wings and just go sell them on eBay. You know what I'm saying? And that is why we are called to, in our dharma, to be more on this planet Earth, a warrior essence. So we could say a mover and shaker. Okay? To keep all, these fairy kingdoms, these angelic kingdoms very much intact. Okay, within the memory and with the mythology and within the epigenetics of human. Keep it very intact, because that is our authenticity. And though throughout many lifetimes, we have very much been lying to ourselves, deceiving ourselves, all of this stuff, that takes a toll on that authenticity. Okay? But in any lifetime, either it's now or, in the future, we always, by our heart, by our soul, are brought to our authenticity. Because that is our joy. And regardless of what anybody says, the joy is your authenticity. It's not something you can buy and go buy, fairy wings on eBay and stuff like that, A joy is you coming into the full expression of yourself. Not this tense, I do this, I don't like it. The full expression of yourself. So I'm just gonna leave you guys with these thoughts. I feel that's the message.